It might be a car accident where the rubber meets the road. Yeah, it often happens. Thank you. Such a troublemaker, this girl. We all do our part. Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishna Jagadguru Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmahu Pranamami Muhurmahu Pranamami Muhurmahu. Thank you for coming out in this god-awful cold weather when you could have been inside with the heat on and you didn't have to go in your car to come here. I'm very pleased to see you all. Is this too loud, too soft, too nothing? Okay, thumbs up. I want to emphasize to you how lucky you are that you have such good samskars that you'd actually come here. You could be watching television right now. You could be, scrolling on your phone like you do all the time. You could be, calling your kids. You could be playing video games. You could be actually sleeping and relaxing instead of going out into that god-awful cold weather and coming here to hear someone that most of you haven't met and to hear something about the senior Swamis. That shows that you have really good tendencies, or else you wouldn't do this. You would rather stay at home and be cozy and safe, and you could go to bed really early like you love to do. But you've come here instead, which shows that every one of you have really good spiritual tendencies. So I want to bring that to your attention because most people on the planet really don't have the same tendencies that you do. Most people are really happy if they have enough television and entertainment and they're assured a place in heaven. We want something more. I feel so fortunate that I've come into the orbit of the Ramakrishna order. It was really, I thought, quite by accident. Because in 1967, when some of you were not even born, I'm sure, I was an anti-war protester. I was in high school. I was a sophomore in high school. And so I was outraged that we would be in this ridiculous war in Vietnam and that needless people were suffering and dying. So I belonged to an organization where we were organizing a big march down State Street, which is the big street in town, just people are organizing and marching now. It was a fervid time. And so we went to, belonged to an organization, Women's Strike for Peace, and I was too young to drive. So I was paired with a guy who had a car and who had the pamphlets, which advertised a march down the center of town. So we went together and we leafleted the Catholic Church. Everyone who went out got a leaflet. And we had all these leaflets left over. And I said, okay, well, what now? And he said, let's go to the Vedanta temple. And I went, what's that? He said, oh, it's a beautiful place that's got a big parking lot. That was the clincher. That was the parking lot. And specifically the windshield wipers of the parking lot were my goal on that morning. To open, that was up, put a pamphlet. Next one, I would have killed myself now. What are you doing with it? But that's what got me there. So after we did that, we leafleted all the many cars. There were probably a couple hundred there. And because that was the time of the Beatles. And so everything was was Hindu spirituality, because it was the time of the Maharishi and meditation. And the Vedanta temple was the only thing within a couple of 100 miles. No, probably 100 miles because of Hollywood. The only game in town. So it's like all the people came to the temple. So we were in there. Obviously the lecture had already started. The place was packed. And the guy that I was with said, let's go in there. And I looked at that building and I said, can we go in there? And he said, yeah, it's really cool. It's got good vibes. So in we went to the good vibes, and there was not a place to sit. It was so crowded that we sat on the stairs going up to the shrine. That's it. That's the only, and we all crowded in. And the speaker was Swami Pavitrananda, who was the senior, a disciple of Swami Brahmananda, and very thin, and seemed very austere. And I thought, I don't do fasting. This guy looks like he fasts. And he said, I couldn't understand him. He spoke very far back in his throat like that. But I hear God. But the place had a nice vibe, as they say. And then after he finished speaking, the smaller, shorter, mercifully rounder Swami came up and thanked him. And they both walked down to the front of the temple where they greeted everybody individually and shook their hands. So I shook Swami Pavitrananda's hand, and he was like, obviously not used to shaking hands. I heard from one of his disciples in the summer that he never shook anybody's hand. I said, probably Swami Prabhavananda forced him to. He was a little bit senior. So then I went next to Swami Prabhavananda, who I'd never seen before in my life. Smaller, rounder. And I put my hand out, and he just went like that. He didn't shake it, just kind of barely touched it. And he looked at me and smiled. And I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was humiliated because I was like, stop the war machine. Wow, take over the band. It's like all of a sudden, oh. And I literally couldn't move. I felt paralyzed. I'd never encountered anything like that in my life. I had gone to all sorts of different churches. I'd gone to synagogues. I was interested, then gave the whole thing up as ridiculous. I started going to the Unitarians because they were anti-war and they were doing social action. It's like, I'd never met anyone who could actually transmit love, purity, and holiness. Holy was a word that I didn't understand. It just meant like up there. But it actually could transmit that kind of holiness. I was just stunned. I didn't know what to make of it. So I was just like, I just stuttered out, you're so beautiful, with tears running down my face. And he just kind of laughed. And off I went because there were like 200 people standing behind me. And I thought, I was almost like in a daze, and I thought, what is this place? Who is this man? So anytime I could get anyone to drive me up there, because there was no way you could walk up there. It was 10 miles from the center of town, and most of it uphill, like uphill. And I didn't know the place. I didn't know. So anyone, I would keep coming back and keep coming back. And then I started just reading about Vedanta. What is it? I read everything I could get my hands on. And everything I read was like, yes, yes, yes. I was just everything fit in so beautifully. It answered questions that philosophers have been wrestling with for like the dawn of time. Why does God permit evil? Well, it's called karma. So it answered, everything made sense, and the broad vision, the universality, and the idea that every human being has divinity in their hearts, and that if we want to worship God, we can serve that divinity in the human being in front of us. Everything was so, I was like, yes, I got the biggest crush on Vedanta. I thought, I was like, this is the best thing ever. I was like, everyone's got to go to Vedanta. So I'd bring my friends. They were like, well, all right. They didn't. I was astounded. I had a friend in the Czech Republic. You've got to find out about this. He's like, no, we're Marxists. We don't believe that. What's wrong with you guys, people? So I finally got myself an appointment with Swami Prabhavananda. Excuse me. I'm slightly allergic to incense, so I got an appointment, and I said, I was 15, so you have to realize how profoundly immature I was. And I was a brat, 15. Anyway, so I was 15. I said, he was sitting, and I walked into the convent living room, and I said, Swami, have you seen God? And he should have chewed me out for such a stupid, arrogant question, but instead he just put his head down. And when he raised his head, there were tears coming out both sides of his eyes. And he said, yes, and you can too. And that was like, okay, I'm going to do that in the next 5 years. That's my job. I'm going to make that my little project. I'm going to realize God in the next 5 years. Because when you're a teenager, everything seems so, like that. But I kept coming back. And what he gave me, he was famous for not giving initiation. He was very tough. He would say, I overheard him saying, you will have to ask me again and again. So I thought, well, I'd better get started. I'm going to die one of these days. So I asked Pravrajika, the head of our convent, I said, do you think it'd be okay if I started asking Swami if he'll initiate me? And she said, she's from Chattanooga, Tennessee. She said, yes, honey, you can start asking. So I went into the living room. I said, Swami? He looked up from the Christian Science monitor. Yes. Will you initiate me? Oh, sure. You're kidding, I said. He started laughing. He said, no, I'm not kidding. I said, really? You will initiate me? Yes. But then, this was in November, I had to wait until Sri Ramakrishna's puja in Hollywood. I thought, oh my God, he could die by then. He's old. He was so old that you... And so I was really worried about that. Also, I couldn't drive. So I went home to my parents, with whom I lived, of course. I said, Dad, Swami said he'll initiate me. You have to take the day off work and drive me to Hollywood. And he went, okay. He had no idea what initiation was. He'd never taken off a day of work in his life because he loved his job. But it was like, he was like, okay. And I imagine he thought he could get a good story about it later. It's like, you know what my daughter said? So anyway, I had to wait that long. I was terrified that he would die, but he didn't, not yet. Neither did I, not yet. And it was the greatest blessing of my life to come into the orbit where we are so close to the incarnation. We are so close. He was a beloved disciple of Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda. And he would tell stories about Maharaj that you don't read in the books. He would tell stories about other disciples, like when he was at Bellarmine and there was not enough room, there was not enough money, there were not enough rooms. So at that point, Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananda was the manager. And Coca Maharaj had come in, Swami Subodhananda. And so Swami Shivananda said, okay, you and Coca Maharaj will share a bed. It's like, he said, I couldn't sleep all night. I was so terrified my feet would touch him. But can you imagine? Can you imagine the closeness where you're just with the direct disciples at all times? I mean, it's just like, he said that it was like living with saints, just living with saints. And that's the way it was. And they lived such simple lives. After my Gurudev passed, I was like, I joined the year after he died. I think it was because I prayed that if I asked him if I would join, he would say no, and then I'd be cursed forever. So I thought, and it was good. I had to go through a real bad car accident before I joined the convent, which was a really great thing. Sometimes you have really terrible experiences, and they're the best thing ever. So I was on my way to work in this cute little Triumph Spitfire that did not have a neck rest because it was from 1966, which is great unless you're rear-ended. If you're rear-ended, you are going to regret that day very much. So I had no notice. The traffic slowed down, I slowed down, but the 4 people in the big American car behind me, boom. And the trunk ended up right next to me. I was put into the steering wheel, spun around 4 lanes of traffic, and I was in pretty bad shape. But mercifully, I ended up right next to the hospital where I was working. And they took me in, and after a few hours, they discovered that my neck was not broken because they really did think because I had no feeling from the neck down. I could feel tears on my face, but I had no feeling whatsoever. And your mind becomes really clear at times like that when you think, I was there thinking, I'm 24 years old. This could be the last day of my life. Okay? And so I thought, is this the way you wanted to live your life right now? And I said to myself, no. What did you want? You wanted to realize God. Well, what are you doing? How are you going to do that? I thought I would join the convent. What are you doing now? Well, I thought I'd go back to academia. I was in a really good job where I was getting lots of money, lots of praise. I was going to art openings and do all sorts of movies and galore in Los Angeles. And I went down there because I wanted to be with Swami Prabhavananda his last days. But then things got really comfortable. And that's the problem with us. We get comfortable. And you can ride along kind of on the surface of life, and it's just so comfortable. And we don't realize when the page is going to turn and that chapter of our life is over. We're in an accident. Someone dies. We die. We have a stroke. We don't know when that page is going to turn. And that came to me very clearly when I was laying on that gurney, and they're trying to figure out if I was ever going to get feeling back in the rest of my body. Because the first thing I thought was, now I can't be a nun. I thought, this is an interesting time to think about that. Why didn't you think about it yesterday before you drove down that freeway? But it was Holy Mother's divine sledgehammer which got my attention, which I needed, because I'd gotten so comfortable. Yes, life rolled along, and everything was so sweet, and I was doing so well in every possible area of my life. Why not enjoy it? Boom. That's why. Best thing that happened to me. So then I thought, well, if I get out of this alive, I'm going to have to really investigate going into the convent. So I did. But before I did that, I thought, let me talk to some holy people. So my first line of fire, and it ended up being one of my greatest lines of fire, was Swami Asheshananda in Portland, Holy Mother's disciple, with whom I had the blessed association for many, many, many years. We would go up and Davy Brown and I would go up and spend 2 weeks every year with him, and he was always available by phone. If you could reach him by phone, because sometimes there was only one phone. It was in the hallway next to the shrine. It was only Swami Asheshananda could answer the phone, and it was listed not under the Vedanta Society, but under Swami Asheshananda Swami, because it was cheaper. And Holy Mother said, do not waste. So that name was under Asheshananda, Swami. Yes, that's how you would find the Vedanta Society in Portland, was under his name. Good luck trying to find the Portland Vedanta Society. So if he was busy, he would answer the phone and go, I do not have time to talk to you. Hang it up. He'd have no idea who was on the phone. Didn't matter to him. He didn't have time to talk to them. That was it. And he figured if they would reach him later. I remember being once in Arati, and the ringing of the bell, he was doing the chamra. The phone rang. put down the chamber, walked over. I do not have time to talk to you. Boom, back to the chamber to finish the arati. I went to him some months before I joined, and I told him, I'm planning on joining. I want your advice and your blessings. Now, the funny thing is, I must have taken extensive notes on what he told me and all about it, and I'd totally forgotten about it. And apparently, I must have gone home from Portland back down to Los Angeles, where I was working. I must have driven. And I must have gone to work early and typed it up on my Selectric at work. And that would have been in 1976 or 77? Yeah, a Selectric. And I'd totally forgotten about it until about 6 months ago, where I was looking for something in my desk drawer. I think I was looking for my Social Security card, which I put away like 20 years ago in a safe place and still can't find it because I wanted to make sure it was in a really safe. So I was looking, and I thought, I was looking through these various papers, which just accumulate. You never go through them, you just accumulate them. So I pulled out this old piece of onion skin paper. What is that? My meeting with Swami Sheshananda? Huh. And I started reading it. And then it came back to my memory. Like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Huh. I wrote that down. I had no memory of it because it'd been like 49 years ago, right? So you don't always remember things from 49 years ago. So I looked at it, and I remember this now, that I'd gone to him and I said, Swami, please give me advice for becoming a nun, for joining the convent. And Swami Sheshananda, when you would ask him a question, either it was like bingo, or it'd be like, you would sit there, he'd be up here, or you were sitting on the same level, a few feet apart, and he'd be in his chair, and he would just go, you could be sitting there for 20 minutes. I am not exaggerating. And you feel like you on the electric chair while he's sitting across from you going. And I was thinking, wow, he's going to come up with something really profound. He's going to give me a list and I should like. So finally he goes, I found out later that when he did that, when he did these long intervals, he told Mrs. Vera Edwards, his right-hand person there, that he never said anything about spiritual life until he'd heard from Holy Mother about it. So that time that he was going, he was talking to Holy Mother and waiting to get an answer. So I'm there in the electric chair waiting, and so I'm thinking this is going to be heavy. This is going to be a big thing. And he went, love Holy Mother. And I went, it took you that long to say love? That's like 3 words as far as I know. Like, what? And so at the time I wrote it down and I thought, okay, good. I thought, who doesn't love Holy Mother, right? Now I know. That's why I had to lose this thing. Because I would have taken those words for granted, and I obviously did at the time. It's not so easy to love Holy Mother. We all love Holy Mother. Do we really know how to love? Do we really know how to love the way Holy Mother loved? Where, everything is dropped. Where there's no expectations, no hopes, no desires. Are we capable of that? That complete egolessness that she was capable of? Love Holy Mother is not so easy. Does that mean that you accept everything she does? Does that mean that we can really embrace her vision and her actions and the way she dealt with everybody? Do we have that capacity? Because that's what love is. When you love somebody, you emulate them, right? It's like every kid wants to imitate the rock star or the pop star or the influencer. If you really love somebody, you want to be them. You want to be like them. Loving Holy Mother is not so easy. Once he gave me a really fast reply. So I said, Swami, can I have an interview with you? So for that, we had to go upstairs to Buddha Hall, which was like being in a room that's meant for interrogation. So it's like solid white walls, 2 chairs. It's like, okay, here we go. And so I said to him, Swami, how can I be humble? You are humble. I am not humble. You are too humble. I am not humble. Yes, you are. Which would have indicated to him that I wasn't humble if I was arguing with him, right? He's the realized soul. I'm an idiot. I was arguing with him because, and I said, Swami, I was traveling with my dear monastic sister, who was his disciple, and was genuinely humble. She was sweet. She was thoughtful. She was never arrogant. And I specialize in that. She was never got in the way of anything. Just a delightful saint of a nun. And I just wanted to be like that. And I was finding it very difficult to be like that. And so Swami said, I said to him, Swami, why can't I be like Devi Prana? He said, no. You be yourself. Dang. It's hard to be yourself sometimes. It's hard to really accept the type of person that you are. Yeah, I'm kind of there on the arrogant side. Yeah, kind of there with a lot of stuff going on. I can't be sweet and in the background because it's just temperamentally, I end up like, why are you doing that? And then he said to me, she has her own problems. Sweet saint, but we can never be anybody else. We're all born with different samskaras. We're all born with different inborn tendencies, which, if we have enough humility, we can use for our spiritual life. We can't pretend to assume someone else's attitude because it's not authentic. We have to absolutely be authentic. That is real humility. Don't try to be anything apart from the imperfect being that you are, because that's our point of growth. If we don't start with our point of growth, our growth will be hampered. We have to grow from where we are. That's where the grace comes in. And the grace is always there. He was very, very astute. He could see tendencies that we didn't even know that were there. For example, 4 of us nuns from Santa Barbara went up to Portland. We're well known for having a very beautiful place. As Swami Asheshananda said, spick and span. Santa Barbara, spick and span. So their shrine was kind of a little, well, how to put it nicely? It needed help. The windows were brown and sticky from all the incense. The curtains were sort of falling into different shards. I don't know whether they're silk or poly. They were probably old cotton or something. But if you held them like that, they could kind of fall. And they were sticky with incense. I mean, sticky. So, Santa Barbara, we know how to do things. So we thought, let's go into the shrine and we'll clean it really nice. And we thought, he will like it. He will appreciate it. People will know, hey, Santa Barbara's been there. Right. So we came in there early and we started cleaning everything up. In comes Sarda Chaitanya, one of the monks. And he comes in, he looks at us, and he goes out. I'm like, okay. Because his job was to set up the puja for Swami Asheshananda, and he did it every single day of his life. He did puja every day until he was probably 90. 92, just before he died. Just before he died, he did puja every day. And sometimes it'd be jet puja, like when Mount St. Helens went off. He wanted to really go out and see Mount St. Helens. So he rang the bell, and instead of lifting he would just point at the articles. And then it's he was like dealing a card deck with the flowers. And it's like, okay, no, we get a bag of prasad enough. We went to see Mount St. Helens. He was efficient. So in any case, we thought we were there cleaning away and making everything he had so many dead prasad flowers that are all over the floor, all over the shrine. Let's clean that up. We'll make it nice. And then Sarda Chaitanya comes back and he says, Swami wants to see you in the library. We went, okay. Okay, so we go into the library, which is a library with a very large table. So he sits us down with Mrs. Vera Edwards, with whom we were staying in Holy Mother's house, and another volunteer who were there. And he walks in, and we stand up, and he goes, sit down. We sat down, and they went, get out. We stood up. They went, sit down. We sat down. Get out. We stood up. And I wasn't questioning any of this. Sit down. We sat down, and I thought, I'm not breathing. I'm experiencing kumbhaka. And I thought, why aren't I breathing? I thought, I don't want to bring any more attention to myself than I am already, because he was well into his 80s. He was probably 85, 88 at this point. He was yelling so much that the windows shook in the windows. The panes were going, this is not good. And believe me, you feel that energy when you're in the room and he's yelling at you. Yeah. He said, this ashram is my responsibility. It is my responsibility. You cannot do anything without my permission. It is my responsibility. And as punishment, we could not go sightseeing for 10 days. And we went, yes, because he would take us sightseeing every day, like to the rose garden where the roses would be like this big, little sticks with tags on them. And we were totally exhausted. And so we thought, yes. But then he later forgave us. And he said, his responsibility was not his ego. Swami Sardananda had told him, never be a leaning vine. You stand on your own feet. He took that very literally. So when he got into a car, you could not shut the door for him. You would start going this, and he would take it from your hand and slam the door. Do not be a leaning vine. Stand on your own feet. So that meant that he had to mow the lawn at the Vedanta Society with, do you think there was a power mower? Oh, no. It was like the old with the blades. And believe me, they were rusty blades. And he would do it. And then he would go over to Holy Mother's house. And he would mow there. And he looked like a bandit because he wore old clothes. He always wore old clothes. Because Swami Nikhilananda had given him his aviator cap. And so he was always, to him, it would be about the person who gave it to him. So Swami Nikhilananda gave him the cap with the ears here and the bill here. And Swami Prabhavananda gave him the nice, probably cashmere sweater with a button-up that he wore, and there were no elbows left. It was just shards in there. But that was it. And because Holy Mother said, don't waste, his pants were held up by a belt that was, kind of falling into pieces. When leather gets really old, it was like that. The dhoti was held up similarly over the pants. So, because Swami Sardananda told him, do not be a leaning vine, stand on your own feet, he did everything. In fact, when he went to Holy Mother's house and he mowed the lawn there, he would start mowing the neighbor's lawn. So the neighbor called up Holy Mother's house, can you tell that old man not to mow our lawn anymore? He's really wrecking the lawn. So how do you tell Swami Sheshananda anything? But somehow they managed to do it. When he would scold you over something that you thought was the most minor thing, it's like, what is that about? When you were telling him about something major, cannot imagine so much love, such tenderness, and such understanding, such incredible gentleness pouring out of him. I asked him, I said, Swami, would you ever want to be reborn? And I thought, disciple of Holy Mother, yeah, if I could be with Mother again. He said, only if I can serve Swami Sardananda again. Only if I can serve Swami Sardananda. He said, he was so kind. He was so kind. And then he said during a lecture, he said, Swami Sardananda, he was so kind. He never scolded me. And everybody in the lecture is going, and then he went, he said, Swami Nikhilananda made up for it. He came to America to be Swami Nikhilananda's assistant, which was the only assistant of Swami Nikhilananda that ever survived was Swami Adishwarananda, his last one. The others, he rode on him. He rode on him. He was a tough, tough man to be as the head, but it made them into little jewels. Swami Sheshananda had such faith that it gave everybody faith. We were on the way, Devi Prana, Bhava Prana, and myself. We were going with him sightseeing yet again. And this time, we had no idea where. We just got in the back of the car, and Mrs. Vera Edwards was driving, and Swami Sheshananda was in the passenger seat, and he was turned around talking to us, telling us various things about spiritual life. And we were just he was completely concentrated on us. And then he turned around, he said, no, you're going the wrong way. We are on the freeway. We're not only on the freeway, we're going over the Willamette River. Not only are we going on the Willamette River, over on the freeway, over the Willamette, we had gone into two different branches. Vera Edwards had taken the left branch. Swami Sheshananda said, stop the car. Freeway. So Devi Prana, his disciple, is going, no, you can't stop the car. You can't stop the car. You can't do that. And he's just ignoring her. Mrs. Vera Edwards is ignoring her. I'm just getting ready for whiplash number 2. I'm just gone down like that and getting ready for the impact, thinking, okay, you survived the first one, you may not survive the second one. And Bhava Prana it was just amazing to see. She went into pure catatonia. She just went. She was gone. And meanwhile, he starts backing up on Vera's backing up on the freeway. The cars are going around us. Cars are honking at us. He doesn't notice. She's has such faith in her guru. It's like, Swami told me to do it. Devi Prana screaming at him. I'm just, preparing my body for impact. And he's going back up. And then we go all the way back to where this had split. And then he says, now go this way. And she did. We weren't killed. But the three of us in the back seat, we had so much adrenaline in our system, we literally just we fell asleep in the back seat at 10 o'clock in the morning. We were so traumatized by it. It was nothing to them. You don't back up on a freeway, over a bridge, over a river. This is not an action movie. You're an old Swami. You're an old lady driving. And somehow, he sort of got it on the inner that was the way it had to happen. You couldn't have convinced me. And he did not like it if you were not paying attention. So we learned never sit in the front row of a lecture or a class, because if he notices something, you're going to regret it. It might clean your karmic clock, but you're going to have a lot of pain during this time. So it was an Upanishad class at night. And he had a habit of being late at all times. So, and also because he was old, he had the heat up really high. And he'd had malaria when he was a young monk. So he was always cold and he was thin. So it was probably like 80 in there. And the class was supposed to start after Arati, but it didn't because Swami was upstairs in the monastery and you could hear him going, the water going, and then boop, 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 boop. Water going again. Boop, 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 boop. So you got a half an hour that you're waiting for him to come. So by then you're really tired. And he goes on the lecture and then he talks about Heisenberg and Aristotle and Shankara. He's like, oh, Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle. And this, he had favorite flavors, favorite tunes. And Aristotle, Heisenberg, and Shankara. Were in the top 10 there. So we would hear this, and finally he comes down, and the class begins, and the classes always began late. The lectures always began late. And then he's in there, he's giving a lecture, and the poor man in front starts to go like that. I thought, you gotta hide behind somebody. You gotta learn this. He's going, and then Swami Sheshna goes, I demand your complete attention. Your complete attention. And he goes, like, and everybody like kumbhaka. Again, we all like, here we are. He said, you are very rude. I am a visitor in your country. He never left America after 1952. But he was there. Not one movement outside of the country. I'm a visitor in your country. You're very rude. I demand your complete attention. It's like, well, you got it. He said, because I have touched the feet of Holy Mother. It's like, you got a point. Okay. I'll listen. But that's how it was. You couldn't get away with anything with him. Colleen, lovely Colleen, would play the piano before the lecture. It was kind of sitting over there. Podium was here, and then at the offertory when the plate was going around, she would play it again. So half the way through, she's just sitting on the bench waiting. And he looked over. You got to remember, people in the audience. Sunday lecture. He turns over here and says, "Stop thinking that." Dang. You don't have a chance with him. Stop thinking that. I know. The most intense experience, the most loyal, the most loving. Such a grace to have someone who cares enough for you to really burn that karma up. The amount of energy he expended taking care of other people's disciples and all these pilgrims who heard about it and came to see him was tremendous. But he had spent a lot of time at Udbodhan with Mother and with Swami Sardananda. And Golapma, who he said everybody was afraid of, and Yoginma, that everybody respected. But Golapma, they were terrified of her because she would yell and cuss and take you apart and blah, so they just avoided her altogether. But Swami Sardananda kind of set the pattern. Very, very grateful for that time I had with him. There were so many wonderful sadhus who've totally inspired me. Another one was Swami Ritajnanda, our Swami in Gretz, right outside of Paris, where Swami Atmarupananda is now, alas, but he's doing great work there. So he had come there, and when I first met him, which was probably 1969, before any of you were born, He seemed like this kind of uptight sort of Swami. He was very, he was a good sadhu, but he was kind of like, you could feel like he was just really restrained, kind of very, very self-possessed. And I remember I was only 18. I went in there and played the piano, and he came in. He was obviously really annoyed. We do not do this time. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. And you could see he was just like, okay. You could see he was like angry, but it was under control. Like, I didn't know there was no signs around. No one talks. No one told me what the rules were. I just came in. So I spent several months there. And it was wonderful being in the ashram. He led a completely blameless, beautiful life. And then I came back a few years later. He was completely changed. He was like oozing out love. And just like that tight little bud had just like opened up into this beautiful, soft, fragrant flower. So I said, why are you so different? And he said, Sri Ramakrishna was very kind to me. So I talked to his doctors. I said, what happened? And they said, we thought he died. We thought he had a heart attack or a stroke, and there was no pulse. And when he came back, he was completely different. He melted in love. I remember they had it's a huge ashrama. And so they were having retreat, and some people come stay there from all over the place. And a lot of them were like, nah, not really difficult people, difficult with a capital D, who specialize in being annoying. They get the annoying award. So I was sharing a room close in the same vicinity with another woman. And they had other ones. And Christa, who was the German devotee who had taken initiation from Swami Yatishwarananda years back. She was there. She was the cook. She did puja. She did everything. And I never saw her without a smile on her face. I never saw her upset or angry. She would work so hard that at 10 o'clock at night when I would leave, she would say, please draw me a bath and put it on the hottest you can, so that when she finished her cooking and her preparations for making yogurt and things like that, that the bath would at least be tepid by the time she came to her room at 11:30 at night. And then she'd be up early in the morning doing puja, there doing meditation. Amazing, saintly woman. Well, finally, this one woman was so awful that Christa went to Swami Ritajananda and said, Swami, this is really very difficult on everybody. She's causing chaos here. Can you please talk to her? And he said, she's just a child. She's probably like 50. But she said, can't you see she's just a child? Can't you endure it? Can't you put up with it? And she said, I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed of myself. That's how the attitude was. And two wonderful devotees, they lived in Maine. They used to go to the Boston Center. They lived in Maine. And Archie and Nina Stark. Nina was a French teacher. And so she wanted to go to France and go to our French center. And Archie was there. I thought he taught history or something like that. So they went, and she just fell so hard for Swami Ritajananda. She went, oh my God, he's so wonderful. And so she asked me, she said, will you initiate me? He said, yes, I will initiate you. And Archie was sitting next to her. He said, Archie, I can. And then he saw Archie's expression. He said, no, Archie, I understand. It's okay. Who knows if any of this is real? Who knows if any of this is true? You're right. Don't do it. Well, Nina was initiated the following morning. They went back to Maine, to the U.S. Archie couldn't get him out of his mind. So they had to fly back to Gretz in December when they were off school so he could get initiated. because he'd never encountered that love anywhere. And that kind of broad-minded acceptance, that open-mindedness, that open-heartedness. They went with him to India not long before he died. He wanted to go back to India one last time. So he was in Bellarmine. He was quite ill. And then when he came back to Gretz, he was very close to death when they were with him. And Archie was on one side and Nina was on the other. And he kind of held their hands. He was very close. And he turned to Archie and he said, Archie, it's all true. It's all true. And when Archie told me that later, like a couple of years later, he was crying. He was weeping profusely. It's all true. And I say the same thing to you too. It's all true. It's all true. It's worth the effort. It's worth what you put into it because the grace is always there. The grace is always there. I was very blessed to have a lot of association with Swami Shraddhananda, who was our Swami disciple of Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananda in Sacramento. And he was known, when I went to Bellarmine the first time, Swami pulled me aside and he said, oh, do you know Swami Shraddhananda? I said, oh yes, he's so cute. He likes to dance, he likes to sing, he likes parathas and potato curry, and he grabbed me the arm and he went, no, he's a japa siddha. He's japa siddha, he's perfected in the mantra. I went, oh, really? Huh. I felt like such an idiot. I was like, the queen of like, duh. Queen of really being not getting it. And so I said, I will have to spend some time with him. So I did. I made a point of going up at every opportunity to be with him. When Swami Sheshananda was really failing, I would spend 1 week with Swami Sheshananda and 1 week with Swami Shraddhananda. And Swami Shraddhananda, his practice of the mantra made that whole place ring with holiness. And it started out in a kind of a funny way with him at Bellarmine, because Swami Shraddhananda, a disciple of the great Swami Shivananda, Ramakrishna's great disciple, Swami Shraddhananda was also a student of the Upanishads. He was well known for being an authority on the Upanishads. He knew them so well. And he was, by nature, he was a former chemistry student, so his mind worked in a very analytical sort of way. And he loved the Upanishads. And in particular was the Mundaka, and all these things with the analysis of Om. So he went to Mahapurush Maharaj, his guru, and said, Maharaj, would it be okay if I didn't do the mantra, but I meditate on Om? He said, all right. And there it was. And he went and did his Om. And he did meditation on Om. And then next time he came in to see Mahapurush Maharaj went, wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him. Huh. Figured, well, whatever. Went, and then next time he went to see him, same thing. Got the severe cold treatment. Couldn't figure out what was going on. Third time, same thing. So then he went to Swami Apurvananda, his attendant, Shankar Maharaj, and said, why is Maharaj angry with me? And Apurvananda said, you fool! He's given you the holy name of Ramakrishna, and you say you don't want it? You want to do Om? You fool! You fall at his feet and beg forgiveness. So he did. He fell at his feet and asked forgiveness. And Mahapurush Maharaj said, you come with me. And he said, you come with me. And he took him to Thakur's temple at Bellarmine. And he took him like that and said, you stand in front of Thakur and say, Thakur, give me love, give me knowledge, give me viveka, give me vairagya, give me faith, give me devotion. You do that every day. To the day Swami Shraddhananda died, even when he was being wheeled around in a wheelchair after a stroke, that wheelchair went into the shrine, and he was like this. The mantra was what gave him everything. Everything. He would go to the bathroom and say, he would tell me this the following morning, "Pillow, I have to go to the bathroom. You do the mantra while I go to the bathroom." And he said, "Bed, I have to go to the bathroom. You please do the mantra." And then he'd go, "Wall, you do the mantra while I go to the bathroom." And he'd come back from going to the bathroom, "Thank you for doing the mantra." And then the mantra would continue. I'm quite convinced that the mantra didn't leave him for even a half of a second, but he was aware of the mantra going by itself at all times. Everything was around the mantra. I highly recommend that you read his articles on the mantra, which are in a book called Seeing God Everywhere. That's a story. He had written articles. He was an editor of Udbodhan for years, and he wrote some amazing poetry, which was impossible to really translate into English. You kind of lose it. But his articles for Udbodhan were famous. He was famous for his poetry, and he wrote articles for Buddha Bharata and a few for Vedanta Keshari. He was a writer. He was a poet. He was a musician. He was a lover of God and a jnani. Every time he talked about the Upanishads, it was from his own personal experience. So when I said, I want to take your articles that you've written and make a book out of them. People could read. I said, your articles on the mantra are nothing like that is written anywhere else. People have to be able to see them. He went, they can read Buddha Bharata. I said, no one's going to dig up 20-year-old copies of Buddha Bharata. Oh, please let me do that. Nah. People don't care about that. Yes, they do, or they will. Nah. I would bring it up every once in a while. It was the same, nah. It was like, why bother? Why bother? He was an incredibly humble, self-effacing man. So a few years later, when he was quite ill, after he'd had a stroke, I get an unexpected call. "Hello, how are you doing, Jaimaj? How are you doing? I have a favor to ask you." "Whatever you want." "I want you to collect my writings and to make a book of them." "I would be honored. And if you do it, I will give you $20. I said, "Oh, you're a rich man. I'll definitely do it." And he died about 2 weeks before the book was actually printed. But he knew it was being worked on. And I sent him the cover, which he loved, which we don't see now because the Vedanta Press put the American edition out of print. And it was a beautiful sunrise photo in the trees, and he loved that. And the title is Seeing God Everywhere. So you can get that book from Vedanta Press, from Amazon, Seeing God Everywhere. It has his articles on the Upanishads, but the articles on the mantra you don't find anywhere else, anywhere. It's from his personal experience, and they can make your hair stand on end. They're absolutely gorgeous. And he has such a poetic mind. Such a poetic mind. And I said, he'd had the highest experience. I said, "Why do you hide yourself?" He said, "Oh, I'm not a big Swami like Swami Lokeshwarananda." I said, "You're a realized soul." He said, "I like my little life." So he would take a walk. He loved gardens. He loved gardening. He would take a walk, and he had what they call there's a beautiful garden in Sacramento, and they had the garden of the saints. So there was a Krishna garden, there was a Shiva garden, and there was some beautiful trees, and many of them he'd planted himself. So every day he would sit down and say, "Mother, shake your hair." And it was an ash tree or something where it would go, he would say, "Mother, shake your hair." And literally the tree would go, wow, wow. A true nature mystic, a true mystic in the highest sense. And so simple and so humble. Absolutely one of the most humble people. The true saints are the most humble ones. If they're telling you about their achievements, go in the other direction. The ones you want to be around are the ones who realize that they're just an instrument. And they're very often very childlike, just very pure and simple, as he was pure and simple. I think I've talked too long. I've talked over an hour. I just want to encourage you to please come here, because the sadhus of our order are living embodiments of what Vedanta is. These great souls, they cover themselves in the garment of humility. It's like Swami Swahananda was so humble. Some people could be so awful towards him, so disrespectful. It was like they were talking about something else altogether. It didn't concern him at all. He was so humble. People often wanted him to show off spirituality. Let's do the Holy Swami show. He wouldn't do it. He'd say, "I watch television. I saw Hawaii 5-0. And if people were shocked, he loved it. It was like, "I'm not going to play to your expectations." People didn't know that he would be up for hours at night doing japa for his disciples. He said, "I don't know that they do their japa," so he would do it. He would do it. You would go out. He would love going to the ocean, just on a precipice, so he didn't have to walk down anywhere. He didn't like walking all that much. He also didn't like. He wasn't that physical of a person. So if you'd say he wanted to put on a shirt, he said, "These are 18 works." Each button was a work. There are 18 works: button, 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 button. All these, various works of putting things in. So, but he would go to the ocean, and he'd look out over the ocean, and he'd go, "Hari Om, Hari Om." And your mind would just rise. It was nothing particularly that he said, but his mind would go to such a level that your mind would just carry along with it. Carry along with it. And a sadhu that I know was with him. He never, ever, 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 Swami Swahananda never talked about his own spirituality, ever. You could put him in a torture chamber, he would never talk about it. But he was with a sadhu that he knew and respected. And the sadhu asked him just a very general question. Swami said, "Yes, I've had that realization. And I can have it again anytime I want." He said, "Through the grace of Pramesh Maharaj. Through the grace of Premeshananda." That is what did it. These holy souls bring our minds up to a higher level. And the whole point of every single one of our spiritual practices is purifying the mind. Holy company is the easiest way to purify the mind, apart from eating prasad. And you can't do that all day long. No, you can't. You will get fat, like me. Yes, prasad. So that holy association, those are the things that stay in your mind. Those things that I've had from these senior sadhus are so vivid in my mind. And they are the things that have been like my pole star in life. It's not the books. It's not the books. You know why I write books? I was trying to say goodbye to Swami Sheshananda. As usual, we were running late because he ran late. was trying to make my flight to Santa Barbara. I go into the flower room where the puja preparation room. I put my head down on the linoleum next to his feet and say, Swami, I'm leaving now. And he said, I've given this much thought. Oh, geez. You are to write. I said, I hate writing. No, it's your dharma. I said, I hate writing. No. You are to write. It's your dharma. I've given this much thought. I thought, I didn't ask you to give any thought to anything. I just came to see you. I hate writing. But it was like an all-out order. I hated writing. You know why? I was so burnt out from graduate school and all that academic nonsense. For my first 10 years in the convent, I read Time magazine and nothing but lives of our great spiritual teachers. Lives of Swami Premananda, Eternal Companion, Gospel Holy Mother. You couldn't have dragged me to write anything. I was so burnt out. And then he ordered me to. What am I going to do? So Bhavaprana at that point was writing articles for Vedanta Keshri for the Torchlight series. So she was writing on Josephine MacLeod. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I just read something about Sister Christine. So I thought, okay, I'll do what he said. I told Bhavaprana, can you tell the editor that if he wishes, I could do an article on Sister Christine? She wrote him, this is in the days of aerograms, right? You send an aerogram, you get back an aerogram. So she wrote him and eventually heard back from him that yes, he would like an article on Sister Christine. And so I wrote the article and I said, this is ending up longer than I expected it would be. And he said, just keep writing on her. Just the more, so every day I was writing something on Sister Christine, doing more research, writing something up, and it ended up becoming a book. And that Swami ended up being my boss at Vedanta Keshri, Swami Tyagananda. So when he said, look, they're telling me I'm going to Boston. I said, great. You'll be cold, but you're going to love it. You're with a holy man. You're with Swami Sarvagatananda. You're with a holy man. This will be a great post for you. So he came to this country. It's like, oh my God. Well, change is good for you. So that's been a great addition to our country to have a Swami like Swami Tyagananda here of such a high caliber. So I would not have been a writer. I wouldn't be writing prolifically had not it been my gun to put to my head in the metaphorical way by Swami Sheshananda, who was a direct order. I guess I had to do it. All right, so should I close with a chant? Is that the usual way? Okay. If you know the chant, follow with me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. And thank you for this opportunity for me to talk about the people who've meant the most to me in my life. Thank you. It's a blessing for me. Yeah. Introduce yourself. My name is Shakuntala. I came to this very recently. My sadhana now has been really want to, achieve moksha. But some days and sometimes it's like, okay, I've lost it now. I've gone. I think the air has been taken off the tires. And I'm like, why is this happening? And so sometimes I force myself into meditation because I can't say, no, I won't do it because I don't feel like it. Right. So what do you suggest, or what advice can you give? That your experience is very common, that it happens to us all. We get this momentary like spurt of grace and enthusiasm. And we think this isn't as hard as people say, and it's like, oh, because the old samskars take effect. Swami Asheshananda said something very profound. He said, I am fully convinced that when we go through a dry spell, it's our karma being burnt off during that time. So don't think that nothing isn't happening. Something very important is happening. Holy Mother always said, you cannot judge your own spiritual progress. We don't have the distance to see. We really don't know where we started from. And we don't know where we're headed. But we do know we are headed towards moksha. We have been given that grace. So our job is to just do what our guru told us to do and to try to hold on with faith. As for inspiration, I'm a great believer in like keeping up some holy reading. That's really important. And then to switch around the reading too, so you read new things that you hadn't read before. And that, like we're right now at the convent for breakfast, we're reading the second volume of Swami Chaitanyanda's Stories of Vedanta Monks. Oh my God, that's so wonderful. We howl in laughter at some of the stuff, and the other stuff, it's like we're just trying not to cry at the table. It's so moving. But all these things, then rereading things, I mean, we have gospel readings at the convent 3 times a week plus once in the temple, so that's 4 times a week. I'll swear, this is like 49 years. No, that's just the time I've been in the convent. I've been reading the years way before that. I never heard this before, because the mind isn't ready to accept it. The mind hasn't taken in the subtlety of it. And then it's like, oh, wow. So have faith. Swami Prabhavananda said, one thing, it's like you think you're not making progress, but that was before. Because it was a white mind against a black background. Now it's a white mind and a white background. So you're much more aware of how things are going in a different direction because you're aware of it. But it's a very good sign that you even care, that you're concerned about it, that you want it. So I promise you it will happen. If you keep going, we are promised that. We are totally promised that. For our own inspiration, holy reading, there's some videos out there that are really good, and just like going to the shrine. And sometimes you might start out with feeling like, oh my God, this is like, watching grass grow. And then grace comes in and it's like, they are so tricky. But they leave us little breadcrumbs to let us know we're on the right path. They do, I promise you, they do. They'll give you little little signals. It's like, I know you're there and I love you. Keep going. Yeah.
Actually, I have my name is Prabha. I got initiated last year 2025.
Good.
So I have a question.
Yes.
One is, whenever we listen to any pravachana or anything, they say that spiritualize your daily work. If I am cooking or doing something, any kind of chores, they say that. Actually, how to do that?
Mantra.
Oh, okay.
Mantra, 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 mantra. Or you can think too that Shri Krishna, Holy Mother, they're going to be eating this too, in the form of this person, in the form of the person I'm cooking for. But really, who's sitting in their hearts? And then the mantra, keep the mantra going at all times. It will make everything so much sweeter. And then the more you do it, the more it comes to you, and the more power it gets.
Yeah,
Mantra has everything.
My second question is, how does it feel like being an enlightened person from your experience?
I don't feel enlightened. I feel like a total idiot. I do feel like I've been the recipient of amazing grace that I never deserved. I do feel like I wish that everybody could experience the grace that we're given all the time, but we're usually too bullheaded to understand it. It's there all the time. I feel like I'm just one of the most fortunate people on the planet because by sheer error, I ended up at the Ramakrishna Mission, and through their love and their grace, I've been given everything. You know, Swami Prabhavananda used to say, just stay on the train. You might fall asleep on the train. Stay on the train. Don't give up your practice. Don't give up the mantra. Keep it going. It will give you everything because the train will arrive at the destination. Stay on the train.
Sure, we'll have some more tomorrow morning. So 11 o'clock tomorrow, we will have our lecture. And then we'll have Arati and then lunch. So we need to make sure that we return. Mataji, what wonderful stories that you shared with us today, and especially the reminder that this is real.
It's real.
We are so lucky to be with one another in this shrine, on this journey together, and on this journey with you also. So everyone, be safe tonight, stay warm,
Stay warm.
and make sure you come back.